They came from the cold mist of forgotten coasts, raiders, traders, settlers, wrapped in myth, cloaked in legend. The Vikings. So much of their story has been lost to time. We speak their names with awe, but know so little of their lives. Who they loved, what they feared, how they dreamed. But one thing we do know is how their era ended. And this is that story. England. The year was 1066. The air cracked with tension. King Edward the Confessor was dead, and with him, the fragile balance of power that held the island together. There was no clear heir, no sacred line of succession, only a throne and the blood-soaked road leading to it. From the shadows of doubt rose Harold Godwinson, the most powerful noble in the realm. Crowned King of England, he wore the crown not as a symbol of unity, but as a beacon of challenge. For across the waters, others were watching. In the cold north, in the halls of Norway, King Harald Hardrada, a warrior forged in steel and sea spray, claimed the English throne as his birthright. A descendant of conquerors, a child of the old gods, he saw himself not as an invader, but as destiny itself made flesh. And beside him stood a figure more tragic than heroic, Earl Tostig, exiled brother of Harold Godwinson. Driven by vengeance, bitterness, and a hunger to reclaim his place, Tostig would rather burn England to ashes than see his brother rule it. Together, they summoned the fury of the Viking horde. With over 300 ships and nearly 11,000 warriors, they crashed upon the English coast near York, steel in hand, fire in their wake. The Norse had come not for battle, but for conquest. But in London, Harold Godwinson heard the call. His kingdom had been pierced. His brother stood with the enemy. And though another invasion loomed in the south from the cunning Duke William of Normandy, Harold chose to march, not away from danger, not toward glory, but straight into the mouth of chaos. In an act of sheer will, Harold led his army 185 miles in just 4 days, a feat few would dare attempt, and fewer still would survive. Men dropped from exhaustion, horses collapsed in agony, but still they marched, for England, for honor, for survival. And on the morning of September 25th, they crested the hills of Stamford Bridge. What they saw stunned them. The Vikings lounged in the warmth of the late September sun, their armor stowed away, their spirits high, convinced no English army could possibly reach them so soon. There were tales of bathing, of laughter, of wine still spilling from cups when the horizon blackened with the banners of Harold's army. The Norse were caught off guard, but even then their valor did not falter. A lone Viking, said to be a giant of a man, stood upon the bridge that gave the battlefield its name. With a double-handed axe, he carved through English attackers, holding the choke point alone, his rage and pride halting an army. He slew dozens, until at last an English warrior floated beneath the bridge in a barrel and thrust a spear upward, piercing the Viking from below. The guardian of the bridge fell, and with him fell the illusion of Norse invincibility. The battlefield erupted. English steel met Viking iron. Battle cries split the sky. Harold's men surged, pushing toward the core of the Norwegian army. Chaos reigned. Blood soaked the grass. Brother turned against brother. Honor clashed with fury. King Harald Hardrada, towering and fearless, rallied his warriors beneath a storm of arrows. He charged into battle bare-chested, roaring, swinging his sword with the fury of a berserker king. But fate struck swift. A single arrow tore through his throat. The Lion of the North staggered, fell to his knees, and died where he stood. The Viking dream of conquest died with him. Earl Tostig, now surrounded, now alone, refused surrender. He fought with the rage of betrayal still burning in his soul. until at last he too was struck down, brother to the king, traitor to his homeland. His blood flowed freely, mingling with the fallen hopes of his army. Ore's storm, the final act of Norse resistance, arrived too late. Fresh reinforcements from the Viking fleet charged the field, only to find their comrades already broken. The English army, though bloodied and breathless, did not retreat. They stood tall. They crushed the final wave. They shattered the Norse line. The battlefield fell silent. Only 24 ships limped back to Norway. Of over 300 that had arrived, nearly all were lost. The Battle of Stamford Bridge was won. The Viking Age, once a terror upon the seas, was finally ended. Harold Godwinson had done the impossible. He had saved his kingdom, defeated a legendary warrior, punished his treacherous brother, and in doing so secured his place in history. But the victory came at a price. His army was shattered, his strength drained, his men weary from war. And as the fires of battle cooled in the north, a new storm gathered in the south. Only 3 days later, word arrived. William of Normandy had landed on the English coast. Harold turned south. Again. No time to rest. No time to rebuild. No time to mourn. He would march again, another 250 miles, another battlefield, another crown to defend. But destiny would not grant him another miracle. At Hastings, weeks after Stamford Bridge, Harold would fall. His kingdom would collapse beneath the boots of Norman invaders, and the old England of Saxons and shields, of kings forged in blood, would fade into legend. Yet Stamford Bridge would never be forgotten. It was the last stand of the Vikings, the final triumph of the Anglo-Saxon crown, and one of the greatest, most exhausting, most heroic victories in the history of war. What did Harold Godwinson give to the ages? A warning that even the greatest victories can be poisoned by exhaustion. A legacy that in the face of betrayal and invasion, a man can still stand tall and fight for his land. And a memory of a battlefield where giants fell, kings died, and the old world took its final breath. This was the Battle of Stamford Bridge, and it would echo through history forever.